Hi everyone. So I bought a couple of new USB-C power blocks because a lot of the devices that we use in our photography today are all USB-C powered or charged. Like our cameras, our battery chargers, microphones, lighting, etc. Also, I wanted to replace my older USB-A style charging blocks because there's been a lot of advances in power delivery over the last few years. They're now more intelligent, more powerful, and more efficient. They can even communicate with the device they're connected to. So now the device knows how much power is available, and the power block knows how much power the device wants or needs. It can even regulate how fast the power is delivered by regulating the voltage up and down as needed. The older power blocks would deliver a certain amount of power at a constant rate, say 5 volts at 1 amp, and the device would have to regulate that power from the power block. And this is very slow and inefficient and could even be dangerous. So when I started shopping for USB-C power blocks, I was looking for very specific specifications based on the devices that I'd be connecting to it. Number one, it had to be PD or power delivery compatible, which is the standard used by most modern USB-C devices. And this allows the devices to communicate with each other intelligently. Number two, I wanted the USB-C port to be able to deliver at least 100 watts so that I can charge my laptops or my power banks much faster at the 100-watt rate. And number three, I wanted to have a multiple mix of USB-C and USB-A ports because before I go out into the field or I go on a job, I usually have to charge multiple devices, and I wanted to be able to do that at the same time. Number four, I wanted it to be the GaN or gallium nitride style power block because gallium nitride is faster, more efficient, and runs cooler, so it allows the devices to be more compact yet still deliver the same power requirements. And then finally, I wanted it to have an LCD or LED display showing me in real time how much power is being drawn or being delivered to the device, because this is very useful in diagnosing if you're having any problems with the device itself, or maybe you're just using the wrong cable. So also be conscious that you do need to have PD compatible, power delivery compatible USB-C cables, and they also are rated in 100 watt, 140 watt, 240, etc. So make sure you get at least a minimum 100 watt USB-C cable that is PD compatible. All right, so the first device that I got here was this Top Ardre 140 watt GaN charger, and it met all of the other specifications that I talked about. There's a little LCD display up here that displays the total wattage that the device is providing or what's being drawn. It has multiple USB-C and USB-A ports, so we have three USB-C ports and two USB-As. And the USB-C port, individually, they can deliver up to 100 watts of power. You can also see how nice and compact the device is. It also comes with this little stand so you can set it upright on your desk or you can lay it down either way. And there's no separate power bank or power brick for this. So all you do is you just plug in a standard dual pin AC cord so you can plug this into the mains, and so it makes it very, very easy to travel with. And it's very well made. It has kind of this glossy plastic on here. Uh, so it's fingerprint, prone, but who cares about that? It feels good. And I tested this and it does draw up to its rated power, just about. The max I was able to draw out of this was 130 watts. But you have to be very conscious of the advertising and labeling. It wasn't too bad on this one because they did provide a charging diagram of what each port will deliver depending on how many devices you attach to it. And for the most part, it met those specs. And I'm very, very happy with this device. I've been using it about a month now and I haven't had any problems with it. It's been perfect and I can highly recommend this one. Now this is the second device that I bought and it also meets all of the specifications that I was looking for. It has the LCD display. It's a little bit different. This one, rather than showing the total wattage that's being drawn from the device, it shows the voltage and amps for each individual USB-C port, or each port, I should say. And to get the wattage, you would just have to do a little math. You just multiply the amps times the volts, and that'll tell you how many watts that particular port is drawing. And then, of course, we have the multiple USB-C and USB-A ports. In this case, we have 3 USB-C and 3 USB-A. And yes, the USB-C port can deliver up to 100 watts. Overall, the device is well made. It's relatively compact. It's a little larger than the other one. As you can see, I just put them side by side. and which is to be expected because this is being sold as 285 watts. I'm going to come back to that, but yeah, I like this. It doesn't come with a stand, so it does set up on its, like this on its own, but it's not very stable, right? So you can lay it on its side, but then it's kind of awkward to read the LCD display. All right, so spoiler alert, before we go any further, I'm going to go ahead and recommend the Top Adre 140 watt power block over, say, this more generic 285 watt. I feel like this one's a little better made, higher quality. I also like that it comes with the vertical stand, and the LCD display here is easier to read because it shows the total output of the device rather than sort of cycling through the individual power ports. Both devices are very good, but I just kind of prefer this one. And ultimately, they actually output the same amount of power, even though this one is rated at 285 watts. And later in the video, I'll explain that. And full disclosure, I'm not being sponsored or paid by anyone to show you these devices. I bought these with my own money for my own personal use, and I'm just sharing with you what I found through my testing and what to look for when you're shopping for devices like this. So with that said, let's move on. All right, so what can be confusing when you're shopping for these is the total power output that this claims is 140 watts. But when you look at the front here, you'll see the three USB-C ports are labeled 100 watts each. And what that means is that each port can deliver 100 watts, but only one port at a time. This 100-watt rating is for all three ports combined, not individually. So you're not going to hook up three laptops, each trying to draw 100 watts, because that would be 300 watts, right? What's going to happen is the chip in here, the circuits, are going to regulate how much power it can, or how it can distribute that 100 watts in total. So you're never going to get 100 watts each out of the USB-C port. So just be very, very conscious of this. Now, a lot of the charging ports or blocks that you see advertised will have what they call a charging guide. So you want to pay very close attention to that and look at that very carefully to make sure that the power block you purchase is going to deliver the power that you want to all of the devices that you might be hooking up to this. And when I looked at the charging guide for this, I realized that yes, it will provide the power that I wanted for the devices that I'll be hooking this up to. Keeping in mind, not all devices are going to draw 100 watts. Most devices draw like between 10 and 25 watts each. So you could hook up 6 devices to this, and it's going to stay well within its 140 watt limit, and you're not going to have any problems. However, when you go over that 130 watts, in my case, what happens is a little circuit breaker goes off and it shuts the USB-C ports off and come back on. And this can be very, very disruptive to whatever workflow you have going on, if not damaging to the devices themselves. So make sure when you're attaching devices to this that you're not going to draw more than the 130 or 140 watts that this is rated for, because that's when you can run into problems and even damage your devices. Ideally, when you attach the devices, it's going to regulate the power output so it never goes beyond that 140 watt limit. And for the most part, that's true. The trick is attach all of the devices first before turning them on. And what's going to happen is that the charger is going to communicate with the devices even before you turn them on and tell the device how much power they need, and the device will tell the power block will tell the devices how much power it can provide. And then when you turn the devices on, you're going to see some devices come on at 65 watts, even though they can draw up to 100 watts. Some devices might only draw 10 watts. But again, most of that is regulated in the charger, and I found this to work pretty well in that respect. And I've never had the device shut off, that and come back on. The only time that happens is when I forcibly drew more than what the rating was. And the way I did that was that I had, 4 devices hooked up to this, and then I raised the power on my LED light, and I gradually raised it until it tripped the circuit in here. And that's how I found out, is that there is a circuit breaker in here to protect the device from overheating or whatever reason, right? This one here is claiming a 285 watts. And when you look at the initial images that they give for this device, they're showing 100 watts, 100 watts, 30 watts, and then 18, 18, 18, right? Across, going down the line here. And if you add those up, you get 285 watts. So that kind of implies you can hook up 6 devices to this and get the maximum draw out of each one. Again, that is not the case. The maximum I was actually able to get out of this device was 150 watts before the circuit breaker tripped. Fortunately, they provided a charging guide with this device in the advertising, but you have to scroll down and tab over and click on things to see it. So it's kind of buried a little bit. However, I did go ahead and print out the charging guide that they provided, and I found this to actually be pretty accurate. So the first picture here shows the charging guide with 4 devices hooked up, and it's displaying 65 watts on port A, 45, then 30, and then 18 watts on one of the USB-A ports. And I was able to achieve that rating, and this adds up to 158 watts. And what actually happened is that when I raised the power on my light here, as soon as I got to 150 watts, it started cycling. That circuit breaker started kicking in. We do have one for 3 devices attached where we get 65, 45, and 30. Again, I was not having any issues there. And then here's with 2 devices attached. Again, we're getting 65 and 45 or 100 and 30. Uh, like I said, you can see this online. And then finally, with a single device attached. So basically, it's following the same sort of design where these first 2 ports are labeled 100 watts each, but it's sharing that 100 watts in total. And the device is going to have to regulate how much power each device can get within that 100-watt limit. The third port here is limited to 30 watts, and it's color coded to blue to let you know that this has a maximum of 30 watts. And then the 3 USB-A ports are all maxed out at 18 watts each. That said, when you stay within, say, that 150 watts, this device was performing flawlessly. I was not having any issues, and I really like the LCD display here telling me how much each port was drawing. Also, what's very important is that you get the right cable. USB-C cables are also rated in terms of wattage and PD compatible. Sometimes they call them E-Mark cables, but essentially any cable that's rated 100 watts or higher are going to be E-Mark type cables, and they will work with these power blocks and regulate the power because they have a little chip inside themselves. And the ones that I like to buy, I prefer Anchor brand. Sometimes you get a really good deal on that. But I bought a couple of these that actually show the wattage on the shell here itself, and that helps me to diagnose, or troubleshoot if I am having any problems, and also shows me how much the device individually is being charged at. And again, that's also very useful information. So I hope that makes sense. I know it can be a little confusing, but basically look at the total power output that they're claiming and then compare that against the charging guide if provided. If they do not provide a charging guide showing you what the power output is of each port, based on the number of devices attached, don't buy that one because I guarantee it's not going to output the power output that they're claiming. If you like these kind of videos, consider subscribing, hit the like button. I also have a new membership for the channel that you can join to help support what I do here, or you can make donations via Buy Me a Coffee or PayPal. But either way, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.